Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday. I wanted to focus this week on the work that we are doing as an organisation on equality, diversity, and inclusion. And I mainly wanted to do that in light of this week's annual general meeting of our staff networks, our colleague networks that we've had for a long time at Ardash. I know our Reach network is about to celebrate its 6th birthday, our women's network its first anniversary. And within the annual general meeting this week, we formally launched the Carers Network, which will have its first meeting on the Learning Half Day in February. What did I hear from people who are leading our staff networks? I heard a realism about where progress is being made and where it's not. So, for example, reasonable adjustments, we're spending more than we ever have before, but many people still feel that they cannot get what they really should be entitled to. I heard from our Reach network the positivity of the work that's been done on important policies, like policies on appearance and hair, or institutional policies like our acceptable behaviour policy. But we can all recognise that we have lived through a year in which racism is at times normalised within our society, and we've had to take clear steps within Ardash to address that misstep. I heard from our women's network the enthusiasm, the peer support, the participation that that network has brought to so many people over the last 12 months, but also the need now to address our gender pay gap as an organisation. It may be a smaller gender pay gap than it was, and a smaller gender pay gap than many other public sector bodies, but 82% of the people who work in our organisation identify as women, and it cannot be right that we have that 3-4% gap operating within our system. And then from our new Rainbow Network, and that's now the official name, and I've talked recently, as Laura Wiltshire has, about the work that that network has been doing. We heard about their expectations for the future, the opportunities for peer support, for advocacy, for work with other organisations in and outside Ardash. We also heard a recognition of the Transgender Memorial Day that will take place on Wednesday of next week, 20th November, to recognise the passing of so many and the harms that sometimes lie behind that passing. So there's a real mix of the potential of our networks, the potential of inclusion in our organisation, and an honesty about what stands in our way. And my message to the networks and my conversation here today with you is about how we make the positive promotion of diversity and inclusion and our mission to tackle discrimination not just the job of everybody, but particularly the job of leaders in our organisation. Of course, my job as your chief executive, colleagues' jobs within the board, but also the job of each matron, of each service manager, of our lead professionals, of our care group directors, deputy directors and others in corporate departments. This isn't a situation where the responsibility of transforming our organisation is one that sits wholly on our networks. They can hold the mirror up, they can tell us truths, they can make sure we have the rich variety of stories that an organisation like ours needs to succeed. But theirs isn't the task of change and transformation. That sits with the leadership of our organisation into the middle management, senior management, board leadership of the trust. We're promoting a position where we are not bystanders, where we are active in our allyship, where we step in to tackle microaggressions, whether those microaggressions are mine or yours, where we don't rely on a policy somewhere else, but instead we try and tackle things as we hear them and experience them in the workplace, in the room. It's easy to say that, isn't it? Which is why we're putting training in place, because it's hard to do. And it was fantastic to hear from our colleagues in Makita about the kind of training that they have in mind for us as an organisation, drawing on the experiences elsewhere, but with a specifically Ardash flavour. So it's been a fantastic experience for me as our AGM has taken place this week, to hear the reality of what people feel is going on. Of course, you've still got an opportunity within the staff survey environment next year, within the quarterly pulse surveys, to give us your experiences. Within learning half days, there's a chance to be in those staff networks and to there put forward and share your experiences. As a line manager, you should be taking every step you can to support people to be able to attend those staff networks. And as you know now, with the launch of our Trust People Council, those staff network chairs and vice chairs have a particular profile in being able to influence the work of the Trust's board. I'm not naive. If we were naive about the task ahead, we would not have Promise 26. We would not have launched our acceptable behaviour policy, which permits us, under certain circumstances, to exclude people from our care. We would not have taken other steps, as we have, if necessary, to end people's employment in particular circumstances of discriminatory behaviour. But I do have a sense with the work of our staff networks about what might be achieved. So I guess my message this Friday is to lean into that, to join into it, to call into it, and to be part of that movement. We do our annual general meeting for staff networks once a year. There'll therefore be one in 2025. I'm guessing, as last year's was in Rotherham and this year's was in North Lincs, that will be in Doncaster. I'm hoping by that point that we're able to report back on real work to close the gender pay gap. I'm hoping that colleagues in those various networks feel supported. And of course, I'm hoping that as part of Promise 2, our new carers network has begun to flourish. I know that Steve and others involved in forming up that network want to hear from you about what you need it to do, what would help, how we take the broadest possible view of who is a carer. Some people are lifetime carers. Some people are carers for a period of time. As an employee, as a volunteer, as a student, as a line manager, how do we build an organisation which both recognises the remarkable contribution of informal carers and creates the kind of flexibility that will positively promote that? Carleen Holden and others are tasked with developing our remote working policy. That's not the answer to our carers approach, but it's a really important part of the work we're trying to build to be an Ardash that supports flexible working, supports human beings, supports work-life balance, all a key part of the institution I want to be part of, and I hope you do too. Not sure how that fits into a league table, not sure how that fits into some of the national narrative about performance, except in this sense. We cannot deliver anything without being fully staffed, without having people in post, and without supporting people to be their whole selves in the workplace on good days and on days when it doesn't feel so great. So I think there is a key contribution to be made, both to that national agenda and to our local promises and priorities through the work that I'm describing. If you disagree, get in touch. If you agree or you have a story to share about where it's working well, get in touch as well. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks ever so much for listening to me.